Guys, happy Monday. It's our last story before we start spring break tomorrow. There'll be no questions today though. So I figured I'll just keep reading about Millie is next. Remember, Jeremy is out in the woods looking for her and he has a secret person telling him where to look. So I don't know what's going to happen with that, but we're back to Millie. Millie, Septima stood in the doorway of Millie's bedroom, her hands entwined, fingers tugging at her wrist fur. You barely had 2 bites at the feast. I'm not hungry. Millie was laying on her bed, fully clothed, face towards the wall. It was Halloween. Halloween night, except for Halloweening, had been canceled for them. Old Aunt Yetta came across a new picture that had been posted on the line, a shot that proves conclusively, once and for all, that Bigfoots are real. Millie hadn't seen the picture, hidden in the lookout tree, watching the elders' meeting. She was too far away to get a good look at what it showed. From what she could hear, though, it sounded like the Yar, or at least old Aunt Yetta, didn't believe it was very real. Not Yar. It's the old picture of Cassandra, and then just a no for a little while with some pine needles and some mud. Old Aunt Yetta pronounced. Millie felt her fur prickle and bristle with alarm. Could that be the picture that Alice told her about, the flyers that the mean girls put around and were posting alongside an assortment of monsters? Nugget, she thought. I should say something. Instead, she just listened. Richard glared fiercely at old Aunt Yetta. Real or not, doesn't matter. The Nofers believe it and they'll come looking, and it won't be long before they find us. We should go, whispered Aaliyah, who'd been tugging so hard at the fur of her cheeks that she had given herself a few bald patches. We should pack up the village. We should go somewhere far from here. We should go. There aren't any cities, maybe up north, maybe further up north, where it's cold. We can't leave, said Junie, one of the younger females said. I just planted my perennials. And why would the Nofers look here, old Aunt Yetta said. None of them are knowing where the picture was taking. There's nothing that would draw them to our forest. Measures were taken, Richard said, as his wife nodded with her enthusiastic agreement. Always safe, never worry. We must have new rules about noise, perhaps guards at the perimeter, and we should cancel Halloweening. At this, a chorus of gasps came from the younger Yar. No Halloweening, whispered Freddie, whose fur seemed to droop. Silence. You don't have the speaking stick, Richard said, lip curled disdainfully to know his large front teeth. Halloweening was always foolishness, far too risky. We can't be having our own feasting, and that'll be that, just a feast for us. Millie gave a soft growl, feeling that she might cry. She knew that the Yar celebration would include rabbit, casserole, a sweet stewed pumpkin, sweet and savory hand pies, baked apples and poached pears, and sugar-roasted walnuts. Games of checkers and chess and Scrabble played quietly around the fire. No dashing down the strange streets right along with the Nofer kids. No walking up to Nofer doorsteps, bold as could be, ringing their doorbells, holding out your bag, waiting for them to drop delicious chocolate candy inside. No shouts and no laughter, no pretending, the way Millie always did, that she was a Nofer girl in a Bigfoot costume, that at the end of the night she'd pull off her fur-covered boots, unpeel her sleeves and cuffs and her wig, and unzip her skin, stepping out of it, leaving a puddle on the floor, to emerge a smooth-skinned little girl, no different from fairies and princesses and witches and superheroes with whom she spent the night wandering around the town with. They don't know where to look, old Aunt Yetta snapped. They'll find us, Aaliyah's voice was almost a moan. They'll be coming, and with their helicopters and their bright lights and their little ATM machines. ATVs, whispered Millie as she rolled her eyes. Silence, she heard her father rumble. Richard is right. Richard preened, his no-fur bristling, making him look bushier and bigger. It's too risky. There will be no Halloweening this year. Millie had almost jumped out of the tree in frustration and fury. Instead, she decided that minute that she would have her Halloweening, that she'd go trick-or-treating no matter what her father decided. By then, she'd crossed the lake 3 times already to visit with Alice. Each time she borrowed Freddie's clothing, although she was supposed it wasn't technically borrowing because she hadn't technically asked for permission to wear it, and she just kind of took it. And she also took the single canoe that they had for the tribe. She'd eaten brownies and cookies and granola, had listened to Alice, had wept about how much she'd been called a monster and a freak, and how they all had hurt her, and offered what comfort that she could give her. Now that Millie had met an actual Gopher, she could see that maybe Gopher life wasn't as grand as she imagined, and that being a Yar was maybe not so bad after all. Yar mothers and fathers didn't abandon their littles, putting their lives in the hands of educational consultants, sending them away to sleepaway camps and boarding schools, seeing them only a handful of days every year. If Alice had been a Yar, she would have been treasured. While all the grown-up Yar were still chanting their final blessings, Millie had slipped out of the tree, raced to old Aunt Yetta's house, and pulled the top lap out from underneath the box in old Aunt Yetta's bed. She logged on to the email account she created and sent a message to Alice that read, "Can I go trick-or-treating with you?" Then she sat, fidgeting and looking over her shoulder until finally she had her answer. Yes. The night of Halloween, Millie, who had been in what her mother called a mood since the decision was made not to go Halloweening, had left the feasting early and spent the night in bed. At 7 o'clock, she announced that she was going for a walk. "By yourself?" Septima asked. She kept her voice gentle, but her hands were working, plucking at her apron of her no fur, or the fur of her fingers. "I want to be alone, but I would like a little small snackle." Her mother filled her pack sack with treats from the feasting, and Millie walked down to the lake, glad it was a cloudy night. The canoe was right where she had left it the last time. It was the work of just a few minutes to slide the boat out into the water and start paddling towards the opposite shore. Alice was waiting for her, dressed in a long coat with a belt, a banded hat, a pair of dark sunglasses that were pushed up her forehead so she could see Millie. Millie, you're here," she said with a smile, and gave Millie a hug before looking over, seeing Millie as she really was, all in her furry glory for the first time. Wow! Millie had fashioned a kind of hood with a collar out of a piece of brown velvet from Septima's scrap bag. She wore Florey's work boots and carried one of old Aunt Yetta's walking sticks. "Are you an Ewok?" Alice asked. "An Ewok," Millie confirmed. The Gophers usually guessed Bigfoot when they saw the larger littles trick-or-treating, but when they saw Millie, they especially just guessed Ewok because Millie was a little bit smaller. Millie had learned on the line where the small teddy bearish creatures that lived on a made-up moon called Endor, and whose presence had ruined a movie called Return of the Jedi. Millie smoothed her fur as Alice circled. "Wow, that is some costume," Alice said. "The Yar excellent seamstresses," Millie said. This was true, at least, according to the costumes who'd posted reviews on Etsy. "Come on," Alice said. "We're going trick-or-treating on campus first, and then they're taking us to town." Millie marched up the hill, followed her friend, who adjusted her pace so that Millie didn't have to struggle to keep up. The air was crisp and smelled like autumn, like fall leaves and fireplaces, and Millie couldn't stop looking at the no-fur kids in their costumes. Some were dressed as superheroes with boots and capes and papier-mâché shields. There was a boy whose hair looked like it had been electrified. His face was painted white and his lips black, and the girl had an enormous white hoop skirt gown and a matching white hat with a green satin brim. From the way Alice avoided her, Millie guessed that this was the infamous Jessica, who tricked Alice and took her picture. "I should warn you," Alice said, "the stuff the learning guides hand out is probably going to be like, not a no-bake kale cookie or something like that." Millie nodded. She didn't care about the candy and her small snackle and her thermos of tea in case she got hungry. She looked at her friend. "And what are you being?" Alice sighed, pulling on her hat down tightly over her forehead. "I'm the Invisible Man." Millie, assuming this was another reference to a book she hadn't read or a TV show she hadn't seen, simply nodded. After hearing what had happened to Alice, she understood why her friend would want to be invisible. "Hi, Alice," said a girl dressed all in white with a white helmet and face mask who was carrying a slim silver sword. "Who's your friend?" sniffled the girl in a fancy flouncy green dress with a green wig and green face paint. "This is Millie. What are you dressed as?" asked Alice. The green girl sniffled. I'm mucus, she said. Are you from Standish? She asked Millie. I'm camping with my family on the other side of the lake, Millie said. She couldn't believe she was actually talking to not just one, but three no-fur girls, and that so far they seemed to be accepting her as one of their own, except the one in white, who was studying her curiously. That's an amazing costume, she said, walking in a slow circle around Millie, who felt her fur begin to bristle. The girl reached out to stroke her, and Millie forced herself not to flinch or to tell the girl not to do that. Rhea, she thought, how rude it was to touch someone's fur without permission. Where's the zipper? Rhea asked. Sewn into the seam, Millie squeaked. She's an Ewok, Alice said curtly. Millie sensed some mixture of fear and sympathy in the other girls' attitude towards Alice, the way they seemed to choose their words carefully when they talked to her, the way they held their bodies. Alice isn't like them, Millie thought, and for some reason the idea gave her a thrill. She liked that Alice didn't belong entirely to the no-fur world, that she belonged instead to Millie as her friend. The four girls approached the first of the learning guide's cottages. Trick or treat, called Tally, knocking on the door. It was opened by a soft-voiced, mild-looking person named Clem, who praised their costumes and offered them a carob coconut bar before frowning at Rhea. I thought Phil and Laurie said no weapons. I have permission, Rhea said, and when she shut the door, she smiled and said, actually, I really don't. Millie held open her snack bag, accepting her treat, and with Alice by her side and with Rhea and Tally arguing about whether Rhea's everyday fencing gear constituted as a costume, trotted off in a swelling crowd of no-fur kids dressed as clowns, peacocks, ballerinas, mummies, and things Millie couldn't begin to identify. The boys were whooping as they ran from cabin to cabin. The girls were chattering, complimenting each other on their hair and their clothes as the girls strutted by in high heels, followed by a pair of giggling bedsheet ghosts. Millie, feeling nervous, grabs Alice's hand. Are you okay? Asked Alice, who looked puzzled but friendly and nice. She won't hurt me, Millie said. She's not like them. She's not like all the ones that they say they are. I'm okay, said Millie, and made herself let go and followed Alice up 3 steps and onto the seat of the school bus, which roared to life when lurching down the street. The boys were singing 99 bottles of beer on the wall, 99 bottles of beer. You take one down and smash it around, 98 bottles of beer on the wall. The girls were pulling mirrors out of their purses and pockets, inspecting themselves. Millie shut her eyes and leaned her head back against the pebbled plastic on the bus seat, trying to make her knees stop quivering, thinking that working her way into the no-fur society was the first step towards her eventual stardom. I made it. I'm here, she thought. I'm really, really here. All right, so that was chapter 15. We will do chapter 16 after spring break. I want to wish you guys a great spring break. Take a rest, enjoy your families. Try and do some fun things. I know it's kind of a crazy time. I miss you guys a lot. Have a great day. Bye.